Question 1. Process analysis reveals that the Andalas University entrance exam application submission system is experiencing significant delays in applicant confirmation and has a high rate of incomplete submissions due to unclear instructions. Which approach best addresses these issues while adhering to the university's commitment to a fair and efficient admission process? Option A. Immediately implement a new, advanced online application platform without extensive testing, assuming it will resolve all current issues and improve efficiency. Option B. Reduce the number of required application fields to simplify the process, even if it means collecting less comprehensive information about applicants. Option C. Focus solely on speeding up the manual review of applications, disregarding the initial submission and confirmation stages to reduce overall processing time. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the entire application lifecycle, from initial advertisement to final decision, gathering feedback from applicants and administrative staff to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for clarification. Subsequently, redesign the online submission portal for better user experience and implement automated confirmation emails with clear status updates. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the entire application lifecycle, from initial advertisement to final decision, gathering feedback from applicants and administrative staff to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for clarification. Subsequently, redesign the online submission portal for better user experience and implement automated confirmation emails with clear status updates. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university entrance exam process, while aiming for fairness and efficiency, can be susceptible to bottlenecks and inefficiencies that impact the applicant experience and the institution's reputation. The need for process optimization is critical to ensure a smooth, transparent, and timely admission cycle, which directly affects prospective students and the university's operational effectiveness. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement improvements that are both effective and compliant with the Andalas University's internal regulations and any overarching national educational guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the current application submission and processing workflow, identifying specific pain points such as delays in confirmation, unclear instructions, or redundant data entry. This approach prioritizes stakeholder feedback, applicants and administrative staff, and leverages data to pinpoint areas for improvement. By focusing on streamlining steps, clarifying communication channels, and potentially integrating digital solutions where appropriate, this method aims to enhance efficiency and applicant satisfaction without compromising the integrity or fairness of the selection process. This aligns with the general principles of good governance and operational excellence expected of educational institutions, ensuring that the admission process is both effective and ethical. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or without a thorough understanding of the existing process. For instance, randomly introducing new software without assessing its compatibility or the training needs of staff could lead to further disruptions and errors, violating principles of responsible resource management and potentially creating new compliance issues if data security is compromised. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed over accuracy, leading to rushed decisions or overlooking critical application components, which would undermine the fairness and validity of the entrance exam. This would be a direct contravention of the ethical obligation to conduct a fair and thorough evaluation of all candidates. A third incorrect approach might be to ignore feedback from applicants, leading to a perpetuation of existing problems and a decline in the university's attractiveness to future cohorts. This demonstrates a lack of responsiveness and a failure to uphold the principle of applicant-centric service. Professionals tasked with optimizing such processes should employ a structured decision-making framework. This typically involves 1. Defining the problem and objectives clearly, 2. Mapping the current process to understand its intricacies, 3. Gathering data and feedback from all relevant stakeholders, 4. Identifying root causes of inefficiencies, 5. Brainstorming and evaluating potential solutions based on feasibility, impact, and compliance, 6. Implementing the chosen solutions with pilot testing where possible, 7. Monitoring the results and making further adjustments as needed. This iterative and data-driven approach ensures that improvements are targeted, effective, and sustainable. Question 2. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent pattern of delayed submission alerts for a significant portion of students in the final examination period. Which of the following diagnostic approaches best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and process optimization within the Andalas University framework? Option A. Conduct a detailed audit of system logs, cross-reference with student submission timestamps and faculty verification records, and consult with IT and academic administration to identify the root cause. Option B. Immediately initiate a system-wide software patch, assuming a widespread technical malfunction. Option C. Manually adjust the alert thresholds for all students to prevent future delayed alerts without investigating the underlying cause of the initial delays. Option D. Inform the Dean of Academic Affairs of a potential system failure and await further instructions without any preliminary investigation. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a system-wide software patch, assuming a widespread technical malfunction. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a significant deviation from expected performance metrics for a critical academic process. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate and accurate identification of the root cause of the deviation, while adhering to the established protocols and ethical guidelines of Andalas University. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly must be balanced with the need for thoroughness and integrity in the diagnostic process. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation that prioritizes the integrity of the academic process and student fairness. This means meticulously reviewing the monitoring system's logs, cross-referencing with other relevant academic records, and consulting with the relevant academic and IT departments. This approach aligns with the principles of academic integrity and due process, ensuring that any identified issues are addressed based on verifiable evidence and in accordance with university regulations. The ethical imperative is to maintain a fair and transparent academic environment for all students. An incorrect approach that involves immediately assuming a technical glitch without thorough investigation fails to acknowledge the possibility of procedural errors or external factors impacting the system. This bypasses the necessary due diligence and could lead to an incomplete or inaccurate diagnosis, potentially causing further disruption or unfair outcomes for students. It violates the principle of thoroughness in problem solving. Another incorrect approach, which is to escalate the issue to senior management without attempting any initial diagnosis, demonstrates a lack of initiative and responsibility. While escalation is sometimes necessary, it should follow a preliminary assessment to provide management with informed context. This approach can lead to inefficient resource allocation and delays in resolution, potentially impacting the academic schedule. It fails to uphold professional responsibility for initial problem assessment. A third incorrect approach, which is to implement a quick fix based on anecdotal evidence or assumptions, is highly problematic. This bypasses the systematic investigation required to understand the root cause. Such a fix might temporarily mask the problem or even exacerbate it, leading to more significant issues down the line. It directly contravenes the need for evidence-based decision-making and risks compromising the reliability of the academic monitoring system. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the problem, gathering all relevant data, analyzing the data to identify potential causes, evaluating these causes against established protocols and evidence, implementing the most appropriate solution, and finally, monitoring the effectiveness of the solution. This iterative process ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory frameworks. Question 3. The control framework reveals potential vulnerabilities in the administration of the Andalas University entrance exam, specifically concerning the security of examination materials and the integrity of the invigilation process. To address these, which of the following strategies represents the most effective and ethically sound approach to process optimization? Option A. Implement a sudden and significant alteration to the examination format and question types just weeks before the exam date to prevent any potential pre-existing knowledge of the test. Option B. Invest heavily in advanced surveillance technology and increase the number of invigilators across all examination centers without a prior assessment of specific procedural gaps. Option C. Prioritize the immediate dismissal of any reported concerns regarding potential malpractice to avoid unnecessary disruption to the examination schedule. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all existing examination procedures, from question development to result dissemination, to identify and rectify systemic weaknesses, and subsequently implement targeted enhancements to strengthen the control framework. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all existing examination procedures, from question development to result dissemination, to identify and rectify systemic weaknesses, and subsequently implement targeted enhancements to strengthen the control framework. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing a large-scale entrance examination. The pressure to ensure a fair and secure process, while also being efficient, can lead to difficult decisions. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and transparency without compromising the integrity of the examination. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of existing examination procedures to identify and mitigate potential weaknesses. This includes a thorough assessment of the current control framework, focusing on areas such as question security, invigilation protocols, and the integrity of the marking process. By proactively identifying and addressing these vulnerabilities, the university can strengthen its defenses against malpractice and ensure a more robust and reliable examination outcome. This aligns with the general principles of good governance and operational efficiency expected of educational institutions, aiming to provide a fair assessment for all candidates. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on increased surveillance technology without addressing the underlying procedural gaps. While technology can be a tool, it is not a panacea. Without a comprehensive review of the entire control framework, simply adding more cameras or proctors might not effectively prevent all forms of malpractice and could create a false sense of security. This approach fails to address the root causes of potential vulnerabilities. Another incorrect approach would be to implement drastic, last-minute changes to the examination format without adequate planning or communication. Such actions could disenfranchise candidates who have prepared based on existing formats and could lead to confusion and anxiety, undermining the fairness of the examination. This approach prioritizes a reactive measure over a strategic, well-considered improvement. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss concerns about potential malpractice without thorough investigation. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure a fair and equitable examination process. Ignoring potential issues can lead to reputational damage and a loss of trust among applicants and the wider academic community. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the objectives and the existing framework. This involves identifying potential risks, evaluating the effectiveness of current controls, and then developing and implementing targeted improvements. A continuous improvement mindset, involving regular review and adaptation, is crucial for maintaining the integrity and efficiency of examination processes. Question 4. Investigation of the current operational workflow for the Andalas University entrance examination reveals several areas where efficiency could be enhanced. Considering the need to maintain the highest standards of fairness and security, which of the following strategic adjustments would be most appropriate for optimizing the process? Option A. Immediately replacing all paper-based examination materials with a cutting-edge digital platform across all examination centers, without prior extensive testing or applicant training. Option B. Significantly reducing the number of examination centers to consolidate resources, without assessing the impact on applicant travel times or the potential for increased congestion. Option C. Implementing a phased rollout of a new digital application system after a comprehensive pilot program, coupled with a review of examination center distribution to ensure accessibility and manageable applicant density. Option D. Automating the grading process for all essay-based questions using artificial intelligence, bypassing manual review by experienced educators to expedite result release. The correct answer is C. Implementing a phased rollout of a new digital application system after a comprehensive pilot program, coupled with a review of examination center distribution to ensure accessibility and manageable applicant density. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in managing university entrance exam processes efficiently while upholding fairness and integrity. The pressure to optimize for speed and resource allocation must be balanced against the fundamental requirement of ensuring a secure and equitable examination environment for all applicants. Misjudging the balance can lead to procedural flaws that undermine the credibility of the exam and the university's reputation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the entire examination process, from application to result dissemination, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies. This includes evaluating the effectiveness of existing technologies, personnel allocation, and communication channels. The justification lies in adhering to principles of good governance and operational excellence, which are implicitly expected in the administration of a significant academic undertaking like university entrance exams. While specific regulations for Andalas University's entrance exam process are not detailed here, the overarching ethical and professional expectation is to conduct a fair, transparent, and efficient process. This approach prioritizes a holistic and data-informed strategy to achieve improvements without compromising the integrity of the examination. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of examination centers without considering logistical feasibility or applicant accessibility would be flawed. This could lead to overcrowding, increased travel burdens for applicants, and potential security risks, thereby compromising the fairness and integrity of the exam. An approach that prioritizes the immediate implementation of the newest available technology without thorough testing or consideration of its integration with existing systems is also problematic. This could result in technical failures, data breaches, or a complex and confusing user experience for applicants, undermining the efficiency and security goals. An approach that involves cutting costs by reducing the number of invigilators or support staff without a proper assessment of workload and supervision requirements would be detrimental. This could lead to inadequate supervision, increased opportunities for malpractice, and a decline in the overall quality of the examination environment, violating principles of fairness and security. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with optimizing university entrance exam processes should adopt a phased and analytical approach. This involves 1. Clearly defining the objectives of optimization, e.g., efficiency, fairness, security. 2. Gathering data on the current process to identify specific areas for improvement. 3. Evaluating potential solutions based on their impact on all objectives, not just one. 4. Piloting and testing any proposed changes before full implementation. And 5. Establishing mechanisms for continuous monitoring and feedback. This structured decision-making process ensures that improvements are sustainable and do not inadvertently create new problems or compromise core values. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual pattern in the response times of a specific section of the online examination platform, deviating from the baseline performance metrics established for the Andalas University entrance exam. Which of the following actions best aligns with the procedural requirements for managing such an anomaly within the exam's operational framework? Option A. Immediately escalate the issue to the IT department for a system-wide performance overhaul without further internal review. Option B. Implement a temporary workaround by disabling the affected section of the platform until a generic performance optimization can be applied. Option C. Assume the monitoring system is experiencing a technical glitch and disregard the flagged anomaly to avoid disrupting the ongoing examination. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the monitoring system's output against the documented operational procedures and acceptable deviation thresholds for the Andalas University entrance exam to determine if intervention is necessary. The correct answer is A. Immediately escalate the issue to the IT department for a system-wide performance overhaul without further internal review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient operational processes with the imperative to adhere to the specific regulatory framework of the Andalas University entrance exam. Misinterpreting or deviating from these guidelines can lead to invalidation of the exam process or unfairness to candidates. Careful judgment is required to ensure all actions taken are strictly within the defined scope of the exam's procedural rules. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the monitoring system's output against the established protocols for the Andalas University entrance exam. This means identifying any deviations from expected performance metrics or procedural adherence as defined by the exam's internal regulations and guidelines. The justification for this approach lies in the absolute priority of maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process, as mandated by the university's examination board. Any action taken must be directly traceable to and justifiable by the specific rules governing the exam. An incorrect approach would be to implement immediate, unverified changes based solely on the monitoring system's alerts without cross-referencing the exam's specific procedural documentation. This fails to acknowledge that the monitoring system might be flagging anomalies that are either within acceptable parameters according to the exam's rules or are due to external factors not covered by the system's current configuration. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the monitoring system's output entirely, assuming it is prone to false positives. This neglects the responsibility to ensure the smooth and compliant execution of the exam, potentially allowing genuine procedural breaches to go unnoticed. A third incorrect approach would be to consult external, generic best practices for monitoring systems without considering the unique regulatory context of the Andalas University entrance exam. This violates the strict jurisdiction requirement, as only the exam's specific framework is relevant. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the Andalas University entrance exam's regulatory framework. This involves 1. Understanding the specific rules and guidelines governing the exam's operational processes. 2. Analyzing the monitoring system's output in light of these specific rules. 3. Identifying any discrepancies or potential issues. 4. Consulting the relevant sections of the exam's regulatory documentation to determine if the observed output constitutes a breach or requires action. 5. Taking action that is directly prescribed or permitted by the exam's framework. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal that the current process for administering and scoring the essay component of the Andalas University entrance exam is time-consuming, leading to delays in the release of final admission results. A proposal is made to introduce an automated essay scoring system to expedite this process. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for the Andalas University entrance exam? Option A. Replace all human essay graders with the automated system to achieve maximum efficiency gains. Option B. Conduct a thorough pilot study of the automated essay scoring system on a representative sample of essays, comparing its results with human graders, and seek formal approval from the university's academic senate before full implementation. Option C. Implement the automated essay scoring system for a small percentage of essays to test its functionality without impacting the overall result release timeline. Option D. Immediately implement the automated essay scoring system to improve efficiency and reduce result release times. The correct answer is D. Immediately implement the automated essay scoring system to improve efficiency and reduce result release times. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient process optimization with the imperative to adhere to the specific regulatory framework of the Andalas University entrance exam. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements without compromising the integrity, fairness, and established procedures of the examination process, which are governed by the university's internal regulations and potentially national educational guidelines for university admissions in Indonesia. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine enhancements and changes that could inadvertently introduce bias, inequity, or procedural irregularities. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks or areas for improvement, and proposing changes that are demonstrably aligned with the stated objectives of the Andalas University entrance exam. This includes ensuring that any proposed optimization does not alter the fundamental assessment criteria, does not disadvantage any group of applicants, and is implemented through a transparent and approved channel within the university's administrative structure. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of maintaining the validity and reliability of the entrance examination as a fair and equitable measure of candidate suitability for admission. Adherence to the university's internal regulations and any applicable national educational standards for admissions is paramount. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based on anecdotal evidence or without a thorough understanding of the existing regulatory framework. For instance, unilaterally altering the scoring mechanism to speed up results without consulting the examination board or relevant university authorities would be a significant regulatory failure. This bypasses the established governance and approval processes, potentially leading to disputes, challenges to the exam's validity, and a breach of procedural fairness. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt optimization techniques that inadvertently introduce bias, such as using an algorithm for essay grading that has not been rigorously tested for fairness across different writing styles or cultural backgrounds, thereby violating ethical principles of equal opportunity and non-discrimination. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the existing rules and objectives before proposing or implementing changes. This involves consulting the official documentation for the Andalas University entrance exam, seeking clarification from relevant committees or departments, and ensuring that any proposed optimization is subjected to a rigorous review process that assesses its impact on fairness, validity, and compliance with all applicable regulations. The process should be iterative, with pilot testing and feedback mechanisms incorporated where appropriate, always within the bounds of the established regulatory environment. Question 7. When evaluating the efficiency of the Andalas University entrance exam application processing, which approach best optimizes the system while upholding the integrity of the selection process and adhering to university admission regulations? Option A. Delegating the final decision-making authority for a significant portion of applications to junior administrative staff without prior experience in admissions evaluation. Option B. Introducing a new, complex applicant tracking software without comprehensive staff training or pilot testing, expecting immediate efficiency gains. Option C. Implementing a phased review system where applications are initially screened for basic eligibility by automated systems, followed by a more in-depth review by admissions officers for shortlisted candidates, and utilizing standardized digital platforms for communication and document submission. Option D. Reducing the number of evaluation criteria for all applicants to expedite the review timeline, focusing only on the most basic academic scores. The correct answer is C. Implementing a phased review system where applications are initially screened for basic eligibility by automated systems, followed by a more in-depth review by admissions officers for shortlisted candidates, and utilizing standardized digital platforms for communication and document submission. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient administrative processes with the ethical obligation to ensure fairness and transparency in university admissions. The pressure to process a high volume of applications quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the evaluation. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process improvements that enhance efficiency without sacrificing the quality or fairness of the assessment. Adhering to Andalas University's established admission guidelines and ethical standards, the correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing admission process to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the implementation of targeted changes that streamline operations while maintaining rigorous evaluation criteria. This might include leveraging technology for initial screening, standardizing interview protocols, or improving communication channels with applicants. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and administrative best practices, ensuring that the admission process is both effective and equitable, as expected by Andalas University's regulatory framework for admissions. An incorrect approach would be to implement a blanket reduction in the depth of applicant evaluation to speed up processing. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to selecting the most qualified candidates and could lead to the rejection of deserving applicants or the acceptance of less suitable ones, violating the spirit of fair assessment. Another incorrect approach is to introduce new, untested technologies without proper validation or training for admissions staff. This risks errors, data breaches, and inconsistent application of evaluation standards, undermining the reliability of the admission process and potentially contravening data privacy guidelines. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize speed over thoroughness by skipping crucial verification steps for applicant credentials. This compromises the integrity of the admissions data and could lead to fraudulent applications being accepted, which is a direct violation of academic integrity policies. Professionals should approach process optimization by first understanding the current process thoroughly, identifying specific pain points and their root causes. They should then brainstorm solutions that address these issues while remaining within the established regulatory and ethical boundaries. Pilot testing proposed changes, gathering feedback, and making iterative improvements are crucial steps. The decision-making process should always prioritize fairness, transparency, and adherence to institutional policies and ethical codes over mere expediency. Question 8. The evaluation methodology shows a significant backlog of applications for the Andalas University entrance exam, leading to a proposal to expedite the process by having evaluators focus only on identifying major discrepancies and skipping detailed review of supporting documents for the majority of applicants. Which approach best upholds the principles of a fair and rigorous university entrance examination? Option A. Delegate the initial screening to administrative staff, who will only check for the presence of all required forms, with evaluators then reviewing only those applications that pass this administrative check, regardless of the quality of the submitted forms. Option B. Accelerate the process by having evaluators spend a maximum of 2 minutes per application, focusing on the applicant's overall presentation and making a quick judgment call on their suitability. Option C. Implement a 2-stage review process. A quick initial screening for obvious disqualifiers, followed by a detailed review of a randomly selected sample of applications, and all applications flagged during the initial screening. Option D. Instruct evaluators to quickly scan each application, prioritizing those that appear to be complete on the surface, and to flag only those with glaring omissions or inconsistencies for further, albeit brief, examination. Correct answer is C. Implement a 2-stage review process. A quick initial screening for obvious disqualifiers, followed by a detailed review of a randomly selected sample of applications, and all applications flagged during the initial screening. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university entrance exam's evaluation methodology, as described, appears to prioritize speed and volume over thoroughness and fairness. The pressure to process a large number of applications quickly can lead to overlooking critical details or applying inconsistent standards, which is ethically problematic and potentially violates principles of fair assessment. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with the integrity of the evaluation process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of each application against clearly defined, pre-established criteria, ensuring that all applicants are assessed on the same basis. This method upholds the principle of fairness and equity in admissions, which is a fundamental ethical consideration in educational institutions. It aligns with the implied regulatory framework of Andalas University entrance exam that aims for a transparent and just selection process, even if not explicitly detailed in the prompt. This approach minimizes bias and ensures that decisions are based on merit and suitability for the program. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on identifying obvious errors without a structured review process risks overlooking genuine qualifications or unfairly penalizing applicants for minor, irrelevant oversights. This fails to meet the ethical standard of a comprehensive and impartial evaluation. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed by using a superficial checklist without deeper consideration of the qualitative aspects of an application, such as essays or recommendations, would also be ethically flawed. It devalues important components of an applicant's profile and can lead to a skewed assessment. A third incorrect approach that involves making subjective judgments based on personal impressions rather than objective criteria is highly susceptible to bias and is a clear ethical violation, undermining the credibility of the entire admissions process. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding and adhering to all established evaluation guidelines and ethical codes. They should then assess the potential impact of any proposed process changes on fairness, transparency, and accuracy. If efficiency gains are sought, these must be achieved through methods that do not compromise the quality or integrity of the evaluation, such as improving training for evaluators or implementing better technological support for systematic review, rather than by sacrificing thoroughness. Question 9. Analysis of potential process optimizations for the Andalas University entrance exam, considering the need to improve administrative efficiency while strictly adhering to the established regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specific to this examination. Which of the following strategies best balances these objectives? Option A. Expediting the printing and distribution of examination materials by reducing the number of security checks and verification steps to shorten the timeline from preparation to examination day. Option B. Implementing a phased digital transformation of examination administration, including secure online registration, digital submission of application documents, and the development of a secure digital platform for question paper distribution and answer sheet collection, all designed with robust security protocols and audit trails that align with the Andalas University entrance exams integrity requirements. Option C. Introducing a new, simplified scoring algorithm for essay-based questions that prioritizes speed of grading over the detailed, multi-stage verification process outlined in the Andalas University entrance exams assessment guidelines. Option D. Outsourcing the entire examination marking process to a third-party vendor without conducting a thorough due diligence to ensure their compliance with the specific data handling and scoring accuracy standards mandated by the Andalas University entrance exam. The correct answer is B. Implementing a phased digital transformation of examination administration, including secure online registration, digital submission of application documents, and the development of a secure digital platform for question paper distribution and answer sheet collection, all designed with robust security protocols and audit trails that align with the Andalas University entrance exams integrity requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's desire to streamline its admissions process for efficiency and the absolute necessity of adhering to the established regulatory framework for entrance exams. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that enhance efficiency without compromising the integrity, fairness, and legal compliance of the examination. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between beneficial improvements and those that could inadvertently introduce bias, security vulnerabilities, or procedural irregularities that violate the Andalas University entrance exam regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing admissions process, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement, and then proposing changes that are demonstrably aligned with and do not contravene the specific guidelines and legal stipulations governing the Andalas University entrance exam. This includes ensuring that any proposed changes maintain the security of the examination materials, guarantee equal opportunity for all applicants, and uphold the transparency and fairness mandated by the exam's regulatory framework. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of regulatory compliance, which is paramount in any examination process. Adherence to the Andalas University entrance exam regulations ensures the validity of the results, protects the reputation of the university, and upholds the trust placed in the examination system by applicants and stakeholders. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering regulatory impact would fail by potentially overlooking security protocols, leading to breaches in exam integrity. For instance, digitizing question papers without robust encryption and access controls, as might be suggested by a purely efficiency-driven approach, could violate the security guidelines of the Andalas University entrance exam, risking unauthorized access or leakage. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over procedural adherence might lead to the outsourcing of critical examination functions to vendors who do not meet the specific regulatory standards or vetting requirements stipulated by the Andalas University entrance exam, thereby compromising fairness and compliance. A third incorrect approach that involves altering the examination format or scoring methodology without explicit approval from the regulatory body overseeing the Andalas University entrance exam would be a direct violation of established procedures, undermining the standardization and comparability of results. Professionals tasked with optimizing such processes should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the governing regulations. This involves meticulously reviewing the Andalas University entrance exam's legal and procedural documents. Subsequently, potential optimizations should be evaluated against these regulations, prioritizing those that enhance efficiency while strictly maintaining or improving compliance, fairness, and security. Any proposed change must undergo a rigorous risk assessment to identify potential regulatory violations or ethical concerns before implementation. Question 10. Compliance review shows that the current process for evaluating essay submissions in the Andalas University entrance exam is time-consuming and resource-intensive. To improve efficiency, a proposal has been made to implement an AI-powered automated scoring system that can provide instant feedback and scores. However, concerns have been raised about the potential for bias in the AI algorithm and the impact on the nuanced evaluation of critical thinking skills, which are a key component of the essay assessment. Considering the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university entrance exams at Andalas University, which of the following approaches represents the most responsible and compliant path forward? Option A. Replace human evaluators entirely with the AI scoring system, as it offers a standardized and objective scoring mechanism that eliminates human subjectivity. Option B. Pilot a carefully selected and validated AI scoring system on a subset of submissions, alongside human evaluators, to compare results and identify potential discrepancies, while ensuring robust human oversight and a clear appeals process. Option C. Immediately deploy the AI scoring system for all essay submissions to achieve maximum efficiency gains and cost savings, with a plan to address any identified issues retrospectively. Option D. Reduce the weight of the essay component in the overall entrance exam score to mitigate the impact of the time-consuming evaluation process, thereby indirectly addressing the efficiency issue. The correct answer is B. Pilot a carefully selected and validated AI scoring system on a subset of submissions, alongside human evaluators, to compare results and identify potential discrepancies, while ensuring robust human oversight and a clear appeals process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing internal processes for efficiency and adhering strictly to the regulatory framework governing university entrance exams. The pressure to streamline operations must be balanced against the paramount importance of fairness, transparency, and integrity in the selection process, as mandated by Andalas University's internal regulations and potentially broader national educational guidelines. A hasty or poorly considered optimization could inadvertently create biases or procedural loopholes, undermining the credibility of the entire examination. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based review of existing processes, identifying specific bottlenecks or inefficiencies that do not compromise the core principles of the entrance exam. This approach prioritizes understanding the impact of any proposed changes on fairness and accessibility for all applicants. Regulatory justification lies in adhering to the spirit and letter of Andalas University's examination policies, which implicitly demand a fair and equitable selection process. Ethically, it upholds the principle of treating all candidates with impartiality, an incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the implications for fairness would be professionally unacceptable. This could involve automating certain stages without adequate validation, potentially leading to errors or exclusion of qualified candidates who might have unique circumstances not easily captured by automated systems. Such an approach would violate the implicit regulatory requirement for a robust and fair examination process and breach the ethical duty to ensure equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction above all else, perhaps by significantly reducing the number of evaluators or the scope of review, would also be flawed. This could compromise the thoroughness of the assessment, leading to misjudgments and potentially overlooking deserving candidates. This fails to meet the regulatory expectation of a comprehensive and accurate evaluation, and is ethically unsound as it prioritizes financial gain over the integrity of the selection. A third incorrect approach that involves implementing untested technological solutions without pilot testing or proper training for staff would be detrimental. This risks introducing systemic errors, data breaches, or operational failures that could invalidate the examination results and erode trust in the university's admissions process. This would be a clear violation of regulatory guidelines concerning data security and operational integrity, and ethically irresponsible due to the potential harm to applicants. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory objectives and ethical principles governing the process. This involves identifying the problem or opportunity for improvement, gathering data and evidence, exploring potential solutions, and rigorously assessing each solution against the established objectives and principles. A critical step is to conduct impact assessments, particularly concerning fairness, accessibility, and integrity, before implementing any changes. Consultation with relevant stakeholders, including academic staff and potentially student representatives, can also provide valuable insights and ensure buy-in. Finally, any implemented changes should be monitored and evaluated for effectiveness and compliance. Question 11. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive review of the Andalas University entrance exam admission processes to enhance efficiency and meet enrollment targets. Considering the specific regulatory framework and guidelines for the Andalas University entrance exam, which of the following approaches best balances these objectives while upholding ethical standards? Option A. Implementing a data-driven analysis of current admission workflows to identify and eliminate redundancies, streamline documentation, and improve communication channels between departments involved in the admission process, ensuring all changes are documented and approved according to existing university policies. Option B. Introducing a new set of subjective criteria for evaluating candidates that are not explicitly outlined in the official Andalas University entrance exam admission guidelines to better align with perceived institutional needs. Option C. Expediting the review of applications by reducing the number of verification steps for candidates who meet minimum score thresholds, thereby increasing the speed of admission decisions. Option D. Focusing solely on increasing the number of admitted students by relaxing some of the standard eligibility checks to achieve higher enrollment figures for the upcoming academic year. The correct answer is A. Implementing a data-driven analysis of current admission workflows to identify and eliminate redundancies, streamline documentation, and improve communication channels between departments involved in the admission process, ensuring all changes are documented and approved according to existing university policies. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admission processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Andalas University entrance exam. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to bypass established procedures, but adherence to regulations is paramount to maintaining the integrity of the examination and the reputation of the university. The correct approach involves a systematic review and optimization of existing admission processes, focusing on efficiency and fairness without compromising the core principles of the Andalas University entrance exam regulations. This means identifying bottlenecks, streamlining administrative tasks, and ensuring that all candidates are evaluated consistently and equitably according to the established criteria. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principles of transparency, fairness, and meritocracy that are fundamental to any university entrance examination. It directly addresses the need for process improvement while remaining within the defined legal and ethical boundaries of the Andalas University entrance exam. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness would fail to adequately verify candidate qualifications or could inadvertently introduce biases, violating the principle of equal opportunity enshrined in the exam's guidelines. Another incorrect approach that involves creating new, unapproved criteria for admission would directly contravene the established regulatory framework of the Andalas University entrance exam, potentially leading to legal challenges and a loss of public trust. Furthermore, an approach that focuses solely on increasing enrollment numbers without considering the quality of admitted students or the fairness of the process would undermine the academic standards and ethical commitments of the university. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the Andalas University entrance exam's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. This involves assessing the current situation against these standards, identifying areas for improvement that align with both strategic objectives and regulatory compliance, and then developing and implementing solutions that are transparent, equitable, and defensible. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of the optimized processes are also crucial to ensure ongoing adherence to regulations and ethical standards. Question 12. Research into the optimization of the Andalas University entrance exam application review process has identified several potential strategies, which strategy best balances efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain fairness and adherence to university admission guidelines. Option A. Basing all process changes on informal feedback from a small group of senior admissions officers. Option B. Implementing a phased approach that begins with a comprehensive audit of current procedures, followed by pilot testing of proposed improvements before a full-scale rollout. Option C. Adopting a fully automated review system immediately to expedite the processing of all applications. Option D. Prioritizing the reduction of review time per application, even if it means less thorough verification of submitted documents. The correct answer is B. Implementing a phased approach that begins with a comprehensive audit of current procedures, followed by pilot testing of proposed improvements before a full-scale rollout. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing university entrance exam processes, specifically concerning the optimization of application review. The challenge lies in balancing efficiency with fairness and adherence to established university regulations. A hasty or overly automated approach could inadvertently exclude deserving candidates or introduce biases, while an overly manual process might lead to delays and administrative burdens. Careful judgment is required to select an optimization strategy that upholds the integrity of the selection process and complies with Andalas University's specific guidelines for admissions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of process optimization, starting with a thorough review of existing procedures and identifying bottlenecks. This is followed by a pilot testing of proposed improvements on a smaller scale before full rollout. This methodical approach aligns with principles of good governance and responsible administrative practice, which are implicitly expected in the regulatory framework governing university admissions. It ensures that any changes are well understood, effective, and do not compromise the fairness or accuracy of the entrance exam process, thereby respecting the spirit of the Andalas University entrance exam regulations. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that immediately implements a fully automated system without prior analysis or pilot testing is professionally unacceptable. This fails to account for the nuances of candidate profiles and the potential for algorithmic bias, which could violate principles of equal opportunity and fair assessment, likely contravening implicit guidelines for equitable admissions. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on anecdotal evidence from a few administrators to justify changes. This lacks the rigor required for significant process modifications and could lead to decisions based on incomplete or biased information, undermining the systematic and evidence-based approach expected in academic administration and potentially violating the procedural fairness mandated by university regulations. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of review above all else, even if it means overlooking potential inconsistencies or requiring less thorough verification of submitted documents. This directly compromises the integrity of the admissions process and could lead to the acceptance of unqualified candidates or the rejection of qualified ones, a clear failure to uphold the standards of diligence and accuracy expected by Andalas University's entrance exam framework. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with optimizing university entrance exam processes should adopt a structured, evidence-based decision-making framework. This involves 1. Understanding the current process and its objectives. 2. Identifying specific areas for improvement through data analysis and stakeholder consultation. 3. Developing potential solutions that are aligned with regulatory requirements and ethical considerations. 4. Piloting and evaluating proposed solutions rigorously. 5. Implementing successful solutions with clear communication and ongoing monitoring. This systematic approach ensures that optimizations enhance efficiency without compromising fairness, accuracy, or compliance with university regulations. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that Andalas University's research ethics guidelines emphasize the importance of transparency in research funding. A professor receives a significant grant from a private company for a project that could potentially lead to a product the company manufactures. The professor is aware that the company has a vested interest in the research outcomes. Which of the following actions best aligns with Andalas University's regulatory framework and ethical principles for managing this situation? Option A. The professor proceeds with the research, assuming the company's interest will not influence their objective findings. Option B. The professor omits any mention of the private company's funding in their research reports to maintain focus on the scientific aspects. Option C. The professor immediately discloses the funding source and potential conflict of interest to the university's Research Ethics Committee and develops a management plan in consultation with them. Option D. The professor informs the company that they will not disclose the funding to the university to avoid any perceived complications. The correct answer is C. The professor immediately discloses the funding source and potential conflict of interest to the university's Research Ethics Committee and develops a management plan in consultation with them. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an understanding of how to ethically and legally manage potential conflicts of interest that could arise from a university's financial support of research. The core issue is ensuring that research integrity and academic freedom are not compromised by external funding, which is a critical concern in academic institutions. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for funding with the imperative to maintain unbiased research outcomes. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and disclosing potential conflicts of interest to relevant university committees and regulatory bodies, and implementing robust management plans. This upholds the principles of transparency and accountability, which are fundamental to research ethics and academic integrity. Specifically, adhering to Andalas University's internal policies on research ethics and any applicable national regulations regarding research funding and disclosure is paramount. This ensures that the research remains objective and that the university's reputation for scholarly rigor is preserved. An incorrect approach would be to ignore or downplay the potential conflict of interest. This failure to disclose and manage the conflict violates ethical obligations to be transparent and could lead to biased research findings, undermining the credibility of the research and the university. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the research without any oversight or management plan, assuming that the funding source will not influence the outcome. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for established ethical guidelines and university policies designed to prevent undue influence. A third incorrect approach is to attempt to conceal the funding source or its potential implications, which constitutes a serious breach of trust and ethical conduct. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This involves a thorough assessment of the potential for conflict, open communication with all stakeholders, and strict adherence to established university policies and relevant legal frameworks. When in doubt, seeking guidance from ethics committees or legal counsel is a crucial step in ensuring responsible conduct. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that universities often face complex decisions when considering large donations from corporations with potentially controversial practices. If Andalas University is approached by a company with a significant environmental impact record seeking to fund a new research center, what is the most professionally responsible approach to evaluating this potential partnership? Option A. Immediately accept the donation to secure funding for the new research center, as financial resources are crucial for academic advancement. Option B. Reject the donation outright due to the company's environmental record, without further investigation into the specific terms or potential benefits. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive and independent impact assessment to evaluate potential reputational risks, ethical consideration, and alignment with the university's mission before making a decision. Option D. Accept the donation, but implement internal measures to publicly distance the university from the donor's controversial practices. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive and independent impact assessment to evaluate potential reputational risks, ethical considerations, and alignment with the university's mission before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination process. The pressure to secure a significant donation from a company with a questionable environmental record requires careful judgment to uphold academic standards and public trust. The correct approach involves a thorough and independent impact assessment that prioritizes the university's core values and long-term reputation over short-term financial gains. This approach aligns with the principles of academic integrity and responsible institutional governance, which are implicitly expected of a reputable university like Andalas. Specifically, it requires a proactive and objective evaluation of potential reputational damage, ethical compromises, and the alignment of the donor's values with the university's mission. This aligns with the general ethical guidelines for academic institutions that emphasize transparency, accountability, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest that could undermine educational quality or public perception. An incorrect approach would be to immediately accept the donation without due diligence. This fails to uphold the principle of responsible stewardship of the university's reputation and academic standards. It risks compromising the institution's integrity by associating it with a donor whose practices may be at odds with societal expectations or the university's own stated values, potentially leading to public backlash and a loss of trust. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the donation, but attempt to downplay or ignore any potential negative implications. This demonstrates a lack of transparency and ethical leadership. It fails to address the core issue of potential reputational damage and ethical conflict, leaving the university vulnerable to criticism and undermining its commitment to responsible practices. A further incorrect approach would be to reject the donation solely based on the company's environmental record, without a comprehensive assessment of the specific context and potential benefits. While environmental concerns are valid, a nuanced approach that considers the full scope of the impact, including the potential positive contributions the donation might facilitate for the university's academic programs, is more professionally sound. However, this is still less ideal than a thorough impact assessment that would inform a more balanced decision. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the potential benefits and risks associated with the proposed partnership or donation. Second, consult relevant internal policies and ethical guidelines of the university. Third, conduct a thorough and objective impact assessment, considering financial, reputational, ethical, and academic implications. Fourth, engage in open and transparent communication with relevant stakeholders, including faculty, students, and potentially the public, if appropriate. Finally, make a decision based on a comprehensive evaluation that prioritizes the long-term integrity and mission of the institution. Question 15. Market research demonstrates that a significant portion of prospective students from certain regions within Indonesia face unique socioeconomic challenges that may hinder their participation in traditional preparatory courses for university entrance exams. In light of this, the university is considering implementing a new initiative to increase regional diversity in its student body. Which of the following approaches best ensures that this initiative is implemented ethically and in compliance with the spirit and regulations governing university admissions in Indonesia? Option A. Introduce a separate, less rigorous entrance examination specifically for students from identified challenging regions, with the aim of increasing their admission numbers. Option B. Immediately implement a quota system for students from underrepresented regions, prioritizing their admission to meet diversity targets, regardless of their performance on standardized entrance exams. Option C. Rely on anecdotal evidence from regional representatives to identify and recommend candidates who would benefit from the diversity initiative, bypassing standard application procedures. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed initiative on the fairness, equity, and validity of the overall admissions process, ensuring that any adjustments to recruitment or support mechanisms do not compromise the academic merit of admitted students. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed initiative on the fairness, equity, and validity of the overall admissions process, ensuring that any adjustments to recruitment or support mechanisms do not compromise the academic merit of admitted students. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's desire to attract a diverse student body and the need to ensure that admissions processes are fair, transparent, and compliant with prevailing educational regulations and ethical standards. The pressure to meet diversity targets can inadvertently lead to the temptation to bypass or manipulate established assessment criteria, risking the integrity of the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with regulatory obligations and ethical principles. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective impact assessment of the proposed diversity initiatives on the existing admissions framework. This approach prioritizes understanding the potential consequences, both positive and negative, of any changes before implementation. Specifically, it requires a systematic evaluation of how the initiatives might affect the fairness, equity, and validity of the admissions process, ensuring that all candidates are assessed against consistent and appropriate criteria. This aligns with the fundamental regulatory and ethical principles of meritocracy, equal opportunity, and non-discrimination, which are implicitly or explicitly embedded in the guidelines governing university admissions in Indonesia, as reflected in the principles of the Andalas University Entrance Exam Framework. The focus is on ensuring that diversity is achieved through legitimate and equitable means, rather than compromising the integrity of the selection process. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on achieving diversity targets without a comprehensive impact assessment risks several regulatory and ethical failures. Prioritizing the achievement of diversity metrics above all else can lead to the implementation of policies that are discriminatory in effect, even if not in intent. This could violate principles of equal treatment and fairness, potentially leading to legal challenges or reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or subjective judgment to justify initiatives bypasses the rigorous, evidence-based decision-making required by sound governance and academic standards. This lack of objective analysis can result in poorly designed or ineffective initiatives that do not genuinely enhance diversity or may even create unintended negative consequences. Furthermore, any approach that suggests altering assessment criteria in a way that disadvantages certain groups or unfairly benefits others would directly contravene the principles of merit-based selection and equal opportunity, which are cornerstones of fair admissions. Professionals in university admissions should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of institutional goals and the regulatory environment. This is followed by a rigorous impact assessment of any proposed changes, utilizing objective data and analytical methods. The assessment should consider potential effects on fairness, equity, validity, and compliance. Based on the findings of the impact assessment, decisions should be made that are ethically sound, legally compliant, and strategically aligned with the university's mission, always prioritizing the integrity and fairness of the admissions process. Question 16. Regulatory review indicates that the admissions committee for the Andalas University entrance exam is facing significant pressure to expedite the processing of a large volume of applications to meet enrollment targets. The committee is considering various approaches to manage this workload efficiently. Which of the following approaches best upholds the integrity and fairness of the admission process while adhering to the implicit regulatory framework governing university admissions in Indonesia? Option A. Immediately approve applications that meet the basic stated requirements to speed up the process, with a plan to address any discovered issues post-admission. Option B. Accept all applications at face value based on the applicant's self-declared eligibility and qualifications, without conducting independent verification. Option C. Focus verification efforts only on applications that exhibit obvious signs of potential fraud or incompleteness, assuming other applications are legitimate. Option D. Implement a comprehensive verification process for all submitted academic records and supplementary documents to ensure eligibility and identify any discrepancies before final admission decisions are made. The correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive verification process for all submitted academic records and supplementary documents to ensure eligibility and identify any discrepancies before final admission decisions are made. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical obligation to ensure fair and transparent admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook potential discrepancies or to prioritize expediency over thoroughness. Careful judgment is required to uphold the integrity of the entrance examination and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of all submitted application materials, including academic records and any supplementary documents, to verify eligibility and identify potential inconsistencies. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due diligence expected in academic admissions. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit regulatory framework governing university admissions in Indonesia, which emphasizes meritocracy and the prevention of fraudulent practices. The process should be guided by internal university regulations on admissions, which typically mandate verification procedures to ensure that all admitted students meet the established criteria. This thoroughness prevents the admission of unqualified candidates and maintains the academic standards of Andalas University. An incorrect approach that involves immediately approving applications without verifying supporting documents fails to uphold the fundamental principles of academic integrity and due process. This bypasses essential checks and balances, potentially leading to the admission of students who do not meet the required academic standards or who have submitted fraudulent information. This directly contravenes the spirit of fair competition and merit-based selection, which are cornerstones of any reputable educational institution. Another incorrect approach, which is to only review applications that appear suspicious, is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive strategy risks missing subtle but significant irregularities in other applications, thereby compromising the fairness of the entire admission process. It places an undue burden on the admissions committee to preemptively identify suspicious cases, which is subjective and prone to error, rather than implementing a comprehensive verification system for all applicants. This approach neglects the proactive duty to ensure the integrity of the admissions process for all candidates. A further incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on the applicant's self-declaration of eligibility without any independent verification, is ethically and regulatorily unsound. While self-declaration is a starting point, it cannot be the sole basis for admission. This method opens the door to potential misrepresentation and fraud, undermining the credibility of the university's admissions. It fails to meet the expected standard of care in verifying qualifications, which is a critical component of responsible admissions management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to established procedures, a thorough understanding of university regulations, and an unwavering dedication to ethical conduct. Professionals should always prioritize a systematic and verifiable process over expediency. When faced with potential shortcuts or pressures to expedite, they must critically assess the impact on fairness, integrity, and compliance with established guidelines. Seeking clarification from superiors or relevant committees, when in doubt, is also a crucial aspect of responsible decision-making. Question 17. Consider a scenario where a pharmaceutical company offers a substantial grant to Andalas University's Faculty of Medicine to conduct research on a new drug. The company specifies that the research must focus on demonstrating the drug's efficacy, and that the university must agree to delay publication of any negative findings for a period of 1 year. What is the most appropriate approach for the university to take in assessing this research funding opportunity? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the ethical implications, potential for bias, academic freedom, and alignment with university research policies, while seeking to negotiate terms that preserve research integrity and timely dissemination of all findings. Option B. Proceed with the research as proposed by the company, assuming that the company's intentions are purely for scientific advancement and that any potential negative findings are unlikely to be significant. Option C. Accept the funding immediately due to the significant financial benefit it offers, as the university's primary mission includes securing resources for research advancement. Option D. Agree to the publication delay for negative findings to maintain a positive relationship with the pharmaceutical company, while focusing the research solely on demonstrating efficacy as requested. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the ethical implications, potential for bias, academic freedom, and alignment with university research policies, while seeking to negotiate terms that preserve research integrity and timely dissemination of all findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate need for funding with the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations concerning research integrity and academic freedom. The pressure to secure funding can create a conflict of interest, potentially compromising the objectivity and independence of the research. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any partnership aligns with the core values and mission of Andalas University, as well as relevant national regulations governing research and academic institutions. The correct approach involves a thorough and transparent impact assessment that considers all potential consequences, both positive and negative, before committing to the partnership. This assessment must prioritize the integrity of the research process, the ethical treatment of participants, and the university's reputation. Specifically, it requires evaluating the potential for bias introduced by the funding source, ensuring that the research objectives remain aligned with academic inquiry rather than commercial interests, and confirming that the findings will be disseminated openly and without undue influence. This aligns with the principles of academic integrity and responsible research conduct, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by national higher education policies and ethical guidelines for research institutions in Indonesia. These frameworks emphasize the importance of independent research, transparency, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest to maintain public trust and the credibility of academic institutions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial benefits overlooks the critical ethical and regulatory dimensions, prioritizing immediate financial gain without a comprehensive assessment of research integrity risks, violating principles of academic honesty, and potentially contravening regulations that safeguard the independence of research. This could lead to reputational damage and a loss of credibility for Andalas University. Another incorrect approach that involves accepting the funding without any due diligence or independent review fails to acknowledge the potential for the funding source to exert undue influence over the research agenda or its outcomes. This abdication of responsibility can lead to compromised research quality and ethical breaches, which are unacceptable under any regulatory framework governing academic research. A further incorrect approach that attempts to segregate the research entirely from the funding source, while seemingly protective, might still fail to address potential indirect influences or the perception of bias. True independence requires a proactive and transparent process of managing potential conflicts of interest from the outset, rather than attempting to mitigate them after the fact. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes identifying all stakeholders, potential risks, ethical, financial, reputational, legal, and benefits. A multidisciplinary committee including academics, ethics experts, and legal counsel should review the proposed partnership. Transparency with all parties, including the potential funder and the university community, is paramount. The decision should be guided by established university policies on research ethics, conflicts of interest, and external funding, as well as national regulations. If any aspect of the partnership raises significant ethical or regulatory concerns that cannot be adequately mitigated, the university should be prepared to decline the funding to uphold its core academic mission and integrity. Question 18. The performance metrics show a slight decline in the number of students successfully admitted into the Faculty of Medicine compared to the previous year, and the university leadership is keen to reverse this trend to meet enrollment targets. A proposal is made to adjust the weighting of certain sections of the entrance exam to favor candidates who demonstrate stronger performance in specific science subjects, with the aim of increasing the overall pass rate for the Faculty of Medicine. What is the most appropriate approach to address this situation? Option A. Delegate the decision-making authority to the Faculty of Medicine's Admissions Committee to determine the necessary adjustments to the entrance exam weighting based on their immediate needs. Option B. Focus solely on increasing the number of applicants for the Faculty of Medicine through enhanced marketing efforts, without altering the entrance exam itself to indirectly improve admission numbers. Option C. Immediately implement the proposed change in exam weighting to boost the Faculty of Medicine's admission numbers and meet the university's enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed changes to the exam weighting, evaluating its effect on the validity, reliability, and fairness of the admissions process for all faculties, and consult with relevant academic committees and admissions officers before any decision is made. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed changes to the exam weighting, evaluating its effect on the validity, reliability, and fairness of the admissions process for all faculties, and consult with relevant academic committees and admissions officers before any decision is made. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of fair and transparent assessment. The entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any perceived bias or unfairness can have significant reputational and legal consequences for Andalas University. The pressure to achieve specific performance metrics, such as enrollment numbers or program rankings, must not override the fundamental principles of academic integrity and equitable opportunity for all applicants. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the assessment process is robust, valid, and perceived as fair by all stakeholders, including prospective students, faculty, and the wider academic community. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers the potential effects of the proposed changes on all relevant parties and the integrity of the admissions process. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and ethical conduct expected of educational institutions. Specifically, it necessitates a thorough review of how any adjustments to the exam might affect the validity and reliability of the assessment, ensuring that it continues to accurately measure the aptitude of candidates for university study. Furthermore, it requires an evaluation of the fairness and equity of the process, ensuring no group of applicants is disproportionately disadvantaged. This aligns with the implicit ethical duty of Andalas University to provide equal opportunity and to maintain a transparent and defensible admission system, which is a cornerstone of its public trust and accreditation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on achieving the performance metrics without considering the broader implications would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely involve making changes to the exam that are designed to manipulate outcomes to meet targets, rather than to improve the assessment's validity or fairness. Such an approach would violate ethical principles by prioritizing institutional goals over the well-being and fair treatment of applicants. It could also lead to regulatory breaches if the changes result in a discriminatory or invalid admissions process, undermining the university's compliance with any relevant national education standards or guidelines concerning admissions. Another incorrect approach might be to implement changes without any systematic evaluation or consultation. This reactive or ad hoc method fails to acknowledge the complexity of admissions processes and the potential for unintended negative consequences. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility, potentially leading to flawed assessments, reputational damage, and challenges to the legitimacy of the admissions decisions. This approach neglects the ethical imperative to act with care and foresight in matters that significantly impact individuals' futures. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the objectives and the proposed changes. Second, identify all potential stakeholders and the impact on each. Third, conduct a thorough impact assessment, considering academic validity, fairness, equity, and potential legal or ethical risks. Fourth, consult with relevant internal and external stakeholders, including admissions committees, faculty, and potentially legal counsel. Fifth, develop mitigation strategies for identified risks. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen course of action, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 19. The investigation demonstrates that a significant donation is being considered by Andalas University from a company whose products are currently undergoing evaluation for procurement by the university. Simultaneously, this company's representatives have expressed keen interest in the upcoming entrance examination process, as the university's decision to adopt their products could be influenced by its reputation and the caliber of its student body. The university's internal regulations stipulate strict guidelines on managing conflicts of interest and ensuring the impartiality of all admission procedures. What is the most appropriate course of action for the university's administration to uphold its regulatory framework and ethical standards? Option A. Accept the donation but postpone the product evaluation until after the entrance examination results are finalized and announced. Option B. Accept the donation and proceed with the product evaluation and entrance examination without any specific disclosure, assuming no direct quid pro quo exists. Option C. Accept the donation and recuse the primary decision maker from any involvement in the entrance examination oversight without formally disclosing the conflict to relevant committees. Option D. Immediately disclose the potential conflict of interest to the university's ethics committee and the examination oversight board, and seek their guidance on managing the situation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination and procurement process. The correct answer is B. Accept the donation and proceed with the product evaluation and entrance examination without any specific disclosure, assuming no direct quid pro quo exists. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance exam process. The pressure to secure a significant donation from a company whose products are being evaluated for use in university facilities, while simultaneously overseeing an exam that could impact the company's future business, requires careful judgment to avoid any perception or reality of undue influence. The university's reputation and the fairness of the admission process are at stake. The correct approach involves a transparent and proactive disclosure of the potential conflict of interest to the relevant university committees and the examination board. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance by acknowledging the situation and seeking appropriate oversight. Specifically, adhering to Andalas University's internal regulations regarding conflicts of interest and academic integrity mandates that such situations be managed through established governance structures. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process and upholds the university's commitment to fair and unbiased admissions, thereby safeguarding its reputation and the trust of prospective students and the wider academic community. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the donation and the exam without any disclosure, creating a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would violate principles of transparency and fairness, potentially leading to accusations of impropriety and undermining the credibility of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the donation, but postpone the product evaluation until after the exam results are released. While seemingly mitigating the immediate conflict, this still fails to address the underlying ethical concern of a potential quid pro quo and does not fully comply with the spirit of conflict of interest regulations, which often require disclosure and management even if the direct impact is delayed. A third incorrect approach, accepting the donation and then recusing oneself from the exam oversight without informing the relevant authorities, is also problematic. While it attempts to remove personal involvement, it fails to ensure proper institutional oversight and transparency regarding the conflict, leaving the university vulnerable to scrutiny and potential breaches of its own internal policies. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential conflicts of interest. This is followed by consulting relevant university policies and ethical guidelines, such as those pertaining to academic integrity and financial dealings. The next step involves seeking advice from designated ethics officers or relevant committees. Finally, implementing a documented plan to manage or mitigate the identified conflict, ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the process, is crucial. Question 20. The analysis reveals that Andalas University is considering a new admissions policy that prioritizes candidates from specific regions. To understand the potential ramifications of this policy, an impact assessment is to be conducted. Which of the following approaches would best ensure a thorough and ethically sound evaluation according to the principles of university governance and admissions? Option A. Conducting a comprehensive assessment that systematically analyzes the policy's potential effects on student diversity, academic preparedness of admitted students, and the university's resource allocation, using both quantitative and qualitative data. Option B. Utilizing a pre-existing, generic impact assessment template from an unrelated sector without tailoring it to the specific context of university admissions at Andalas University. Option C. Focusing the assessment solely on the potential benefits of increased regional representation, without investigating any possible drawbacks or unintended consequences. Option D. Relying on informal discussions with current faculty and students to gauge their general sentiment towards the proposed policy, without formal data collection. The correct answer is A. Conducting a comprehensive assessment that systematically analyzes the policy's potential effects on student diversity, academic preparedness of admitted students, and the university's resource allocation, using both quantitative and qualitative data. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of university admissions, specifically concerning the impact assessment of a new policy. The challenge lies in ensuring that the assessment is conducted rigorously, impartially, and in accordance with the established guidelines of Andalas University, while also considering the potential consequences for various stakeholders. Careful judgment is required to avoid bias and to produce a comprehensive and accurate evaluation. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based evaluation of the proposed policy's potential effects on student access, academic quality, and university resources. This aligns with the principles of good governance and responsible policy implementation, which are implicitly expected within the framework of any reputable educational institution like Andalas University. Such an approach ensures that decisions are informed by data and analysis, rather than assumptions or personal opinions, thereby upholding the integrity of the admissions process. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions would fail to meet the standards of a credible impact assessment. This would be a regulatory failure, as it bypasses the requirement for objective data and systematic analysis, potentially leading to flawed policy decisions. Another incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on the potential positive outcomes while ignoring negative consequences would represent an ethical failure. This selective reporting demonstrates a lack of impartiality and a disregard for the comprehensive understanding necessary for responsible decision-making, potentially disadvantaging certain groups of applicants or the university itself. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve clearly defining the scope and objectives of the impact assessment, identifying relevant stakeholders, gathering comprehensive and objective data, analyzing the potential impacts, both positive and negative, and documenting findings transparently. This structured approach ensures that all relevant factors are considered and that the assessment is robust and defensible.